Have you ever felt that the more you try to attract someone special into your life, the further they seem to drift away? Perhaps it's time to stop and ask yourself, what if the secret isn't in chasing them, but in the energy you radiate? Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of all time, discovered something fascinating about this that has changed thousands of lives. And today, it could change yours too. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you modified your behavior, your appearance, or even your interests hoping someone would notice you? Jung discovered that this pattern isn't just exhausting, it's doomed to fail. Because when you seek external approval, you're sending a clear energetic signal: I don't feel complete on my own. The truth that Jung revealed is revolutionary, and for some, even uncomfortable. The most powerful attraction doesn't come from looking outward, but from choosing yourself first. This energy of authenticity is magnetic, inevitable, and absolutely transformative. When was the last time you stood in front of the mirror and asked yourself, am I living the life I truly want? Not the one others expect of me, not the one that seems right to others, but the one that truly resonates with my soul. Jung spent decades studying human behavior and came to a surprising conclusion. Most of us live lives designed to please others, ignoring that inner voice guiding us toward our true essence. The world we live in seems designed to keep us distracted, trapped in routines and expectations that pull us away from our center. Social media, social pressure, even our closest circles, all seem to push us toward a version of ourselves that isn't always authentic. And it's precisely this disconnection that Jung identified as the root of many of our frustrations, especially in relationships. Here's the truth few dare to face. Every time you choose others over yourself, you're sending a message to the universe. You're saying, what I feel, what I need, what I am, isn't that important? And that energy, that vibration of self-abandonment, is exactly what repels the truly meaningful relationships you wish to attract. Jung discovered that our connection with the unconscious isn't optional. It's an essential part of who we are. However, we often ignore its signals because facing them can be uncomfortable. That feeling of unease you feel when you're in a relationship that doesn't nourish you, when you chase someone who doesn't value you, or when you change fundamental aspects of yourself to fit in. It's not coincidence. It's your soul speaking to you, showing you that something needs readjustment. Think about your recent romantic interactions. How many of them came from a place of authenticity, and how many were driven by fear of loneliness, the need for external validation, or simply believing you need someone else to feel complete? Jung invited us to reflect on this because he knew that connections that don't come from our inner truth only create more chaos and disconnection in our lives. The fascinating thing is that when you finally decide to choose yourself, something that seems almost magical happens, but that Jung explained through depth psychology. You begin to emit a completely different energy. It's no longer the energy of lack, of desperate seeking, but the energy of fullness, of someone who knows, values, and most importantly, chooses themselves. Choosing yourself doesn't mean rejecting others or isolating yourself. It's not about selfishness, as many might think. Jung explained it beautifully. It's recognizing that to give your best, to offer true love to another person, you first need to be at peace with yourself. This is the fundamental principle of self-love that he deeply explored in his work. Self-love isn't a superficial concept. It's not taking selfies saying, I love myself, while feeling insecure inside. True self-love, according to Jung, begins when you dare to look at your shadows, those parts of yourself you've repressed, ignored, or feared, and accept them as an integral part of who you are. We all wear masks, what Jung called the persona, that facade we show to the world. But the more time we spend hiding behind these masks, especially in our relationships, the further we move away from our essence. And ironically, it's precisely this essence, this authenticity, that generates the most powerful attraction. When you choose to prioritize yourself, something changes deeply in your energy field. You begin to attract people and situations that align with your true self. It's as if the universe responds to your decision to live in truth, removing what doesn't serve you and bringing what you truly need to grow. Jung called this synchronicity, those seemingly coincidental events that are actually manifestations of your internal alignment. Think of someone you know who has that magnetic quality. Not necessarily the most beautiful person by conventional standards, but someone who exudes a confidence, an inner peace that's irresistible. If you observe carefully, you'll notice these people aren't constantly seeking approval. They're comfortable in their own skin, living on their own terms. This is the energy of someone who has chosen themselves, and it's the energy others can feel, even without words. Jung spoke of the shadow as that aspect of our psyche containing everything we prefer not to see in ourselves. Insecurities, fears, negative aspects we all have. And although it can be uncomfortable to face it, it's in that confrontation where transformation truly begins. Because when you integrate your shadows, when you stop fighting them and learn to accept them, you discover an inner power that completely changes how you relate to others. This integration process doesn't happen overnight. It requires courage, patience, and an unwavering willingness to know yourself. But what you gain in return is invaluable: clarity, purpose, and an inner peace that no one can take away. You gain the ability to say no when something doesn't resonate with you, without fear of ending up alone. And above all, you gain the freedom to be who you truly are. What many don't understand, and that Jung brilliantly explained, is that when you stop chasing and start cultivating, the dynamic of your relationships changes completely. You're no longer begging for attention or affection. You're offering from your fullness, from a place of abundance rather than lack. And it's this energy that proves irresistible to the kind of people you truly want in your life. How to begin this journey of self-discovery and energetic transformation? The answer is simpler than it seems, though not necessarily easy. Start by listening to yourself. Every time you feel discomfort, doubt, or even an intense emotion related to your bonds, stop and ask yourself what your unconscious is trying to tell you. Because, as Jung said, all the answers you seek outside are already within you. You just need the courage to listen to them and act accordingly. One of the hardest things we do in life is honor our intuition, especially when it leads us in a direction that challenges what we've built. Maybe it's a relationship you know no longer works, a dynamic of chaser-chased that has you exhausted, or even a pattern of always attracting the same type of people who end up hurting you. Jung reminds us that ignoring these signals isn't an act of strength, but a denial of our true essence. Choosing yourself means having the courage to let go of what no longer resonates with you, even if it means being temporarily alone. This isn't always easy. Often we cling to mediocre relationships because change scares us. We convince ourselves it's better to have someone, even if they're not the right person, than to risk loneliness. But Jung challenges us to see loneliness not as a state to avoid, but as a portal, an opportunity to reconnect with ourselves. What are you holding on to in your life that no longer serves you? What relationships, patterns, or beliefs have you maintained out of fear of letting them go? Perhaps you feel that letting certain people go would be a loss, but the real loss occurs when you sacrifice your inner peace to maintain something that no longer makes sense. Choosing yourself isn't selfishness. It's an act of love and respect for who you fundamentally are. When you finally choose yourself, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see clearly what was once clouded. People who truly value you stay, while those who drained your energy disappear. This isn't coincidence. It's the reflection of an internal change. Jung called it the principle of psychic attraction. We attract what we are, not what we want. But this process also requires that you be brutally honest with yourself. Sometimes choosing yourself means admitting you've made decisions that don't reflect your true value. Perhaps you've allowed someone to treat you as an option when you deserve to be a priority. Perhaps you've chased those who pull away while ignoring those who truly appreciate you. This isn't a reason to judge yourself, but an opportunity to awaken, to recalibrate, and to choose again. Jung believed that authenticity isn't a state you achieve once and for all. It's a continuous journey, a process of discovery and growth. And on that path, you'll face resistance, both internal and external. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, when you'll be tempted to return to old patterns simply because they're familiar. But in those moments, remember that true growth happens outside your comfort zone. The world won't always understand your decision to choose yourself. There will be those who criticize you, who question why you no longer chase as before, why you've established new boundaries, why you seem more selective about who you allow into your life. This can be painful, but it's also liberating. Because when you choose yourself, you stop seeking external validation. You understand that your value doesn't depend on whether someone chooses you, but on whether you choose yourself. This doesn't mean you should live isolated or give up on love. On the contrary, when you choose yourself, your relationships transform. You no longer look for someone to complete you, but for someone who complements who you already are. You no longer settle for crumbs of affection, but seek bonds that nourish your soul. And in the process, you discover that the right people will always be by your side, not because you chase them, but because you naturally attract them with your authentic energy. Jung deeply understood how this dynamic works. He described how our psyche projects outward everything we carry within. If you live in conflict with yourself, you'll attract conflictive relationships. If you reject yourself, you'll attract rejection. But if you accept, value, and choose yourself, you'll begin to attract people who do the same for you, without effort, without strategies, without having to become someone you're not. This transformation doesn't happen immediately. It's a process, and like any process, it has its ups and downs. There will be days when you feel you're moving backward, moments when your old habits of chasing external validation will try to return. But here lies the true test, in your ability to stand firm in your decision to choose yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it seems you're missing opportunities. Choosing yourself won't always be understood by those around you. We live in a society that romanticizes pursuit, that glorifies fighting for love, even when that fight is destroying you. But Jung taught us that we cannot give what we don't have. If you sacrifice your dignity, your energy, or your inner peace to chase someone who doesn't value you, what you're offering isn't authentic love, but emotional dependency. Think about your current relationships, or those you wish to attract. How many are based on who you truly are versus who you think you should be to be loved? How many make you feel energized, inspired, and at peace? And how many leave you exhausted, confused, or even empty? Jung invites us to reflect on this because our relationships aren't simply social connections, but mirrors of our inner state. The people we choose to have close and the way we relate to them reflect the deepest beliefs we have about ourselves. If you allow someone to ignore you, minimize you, or treat you as an option, it's not because that person is bad, but because there's a part of you that still hasn't fully recognized its own value. Protecting your energy isn't a selfish act, it's an essential act of self-love. Jung believed the unconscious is always working to guide us toward our well-being, but we often ignore its signals. That feeling of exhaustion you feel after interacting with certain people, or after chasing someone who's clearly not interested, isn't coincidence. It's your body and mind telling you that dynamic isn't aligned with your true self. Choosing yourself implies establishing clear boundaries. And boundaries aren't walls to keep people out, but standards that communicate how you deserve to be treated. When you say no to relationships that diminish you, you're saying yes to your dignity, your dreams, and your well-being. This doesn't mean you should cut ties with everyone, but that you need to be honest with yourself about which relationships nourish you and which drain you. As you begin to live from this authenticity, something wonderful happens. Your intuition becomes stronger. That inner voice that once seemed weak or confused begins to guide you with more clarity. You immediately begin to feel when someone or something isn't aligned with your energy, and instead of ignoring that feeling, you honor it. This is the power of choosing yourself. It reconnects you with your intuition, with that inner compass that's always been there, waiting for you to trust it. Intuition, as Jung explained, is one of the purest forms of connection with the unconscious. It's not just a hunch, it's a form of deep knowledge that goes beyond the rational. It's that feeling you have when something simply feels right or doesn't feel right. But to hear it, you need to silence the external noise. You need to stop asking others what you should do and start asking yourself. When you decide to choose yourself, you're sending a clear message to the universe. I'm ready to live from my truth. And the universe responds. You begin to attract people, opportunities, and experiences that align with who you truly are. This doesn't mean everything will be perfect, or that the ideal person will magically appear the next day. But those encounters and connections will no longer feel like a constant struggle. By deciding to live from your authenticity, you also begin to experience that synchronicity Jung described. These seemingly coincidental events that fit perfectly into your life are a manifestation of your internal alignment. When you choose yourself and decide to honor your truth, the universe seems to conspire in your favor. The right opportunities arrive, the right people appear, and everything begins to flow in a way that previously seemed unattainable. But this doesn't mean the path will be free of challenges. In fact, often the greatest obstacles arise just when you decide to choose yourself. It's as if life, or more precisely, your own unconscious, wants to test your commitment to this new path. Here lies your power, because every time you reaffirm your decision, every time you choose your inner peace over external validation, you're strengthening that connection with your true self. The key is to stand firm even when doubts appear. It's normal to feel fear when leaving behind old patterns of seeking and chasing, even if you know they're not taking you where you want to go. But remember this, every time you choose to stay in a dynamic that doesn't honor you, you're closing the door to authentic relationships that could transform your life. Jung taught us that change doesn't happen without resistance, but that resistance isn't a sign you're wrong, but that you're growing. It's the necessary friction to polish the diamond you already are, and as you overcome that resistance, your energy becomes clearer, more potent, and yes, more magnetic. One of the most powerful ways to overcome that resistance is to constantly reflect on what you truly value. What kind of relationships do you want to build? What kind of energies do you want to attract into your life? When you have clarity in your values and goals, it becomes easier to make decisions that align with them, even when that means going against the current. It's important to remember you're not alone on this journey. Although choosing yourself may seem like a solitary act at first, in reality, you're paving the way toward deeper and more meaningful connections. You're creating space to attract the right people, those who support you, celebrate you, and are willing to grow with you. These people don't need you to change to earn their love. They choose you precisely for who you are in your essence. When you reach this point of self-acceptance and conscious choice, something within you changes forever. Relationships no longer feel like a constant struggle, like a chess game where you must calculate every move. Decisions about who to share your energy with are made with clarity and confidence. And most importantly, you find a sense of peace that doesn't depend on whether someone chooses you, because you've already chosen yourself. That inner peace is the result of honoring your needs, respecting your boundaries, and living in coherence with your values. But it's also an energy you constantly emit that others can feel. When you live from your authenticity, you don't need to chase. Your mere presence is an invitation for people who are vibrating at your same frequency. Think for a moment about what your life would be like if you could release the need to chase, to convince others of your value, to change fundamental aspects of yourself to be accepted. How would you feel if you set aside relationships that drain your energy, patterns of incessant seeking, and expectations that keep you trapped in a cycle of disappointment? Imagine the freedom, lightness, and clarity you could experience. This isn't an unattainable dream. It's a real possibility within your reach if you decide to choose yourself. When you make this decision, you begin to realize you're not losing anything by letting go of dynamics that don't honor you. Instead, you're gaining space for what truly matters. You're creating the conditions for true love, authentic connections, and meaningful experiences to flourish in your life, without forcing, without manipulating, simply by being. This is the gift Jung wanted us all to discover. That true transformation begins when we stop seeking outside what has always been within. When you choose to live from your authenticity, something extraordinary happens. You begin to feel truly alive. You're no longer trapped in the exhausting game of chasing and being chased, of valuing and being valued. Instead, you begin to experience the here and now with renewed intensity, appreciating each moment for what it is instead of being constantly projected toward a future where, finally, you'll be good enough to be loved. That feeling of freedom is priceless. It's as if a heavy armor detached from your body, allowing you to move with grace and lightness for the first time in a long time. However, achieving this freedom requires courage. It requires facing not only external expectations, but also your own fears, insecurities, and limiting beliefs. Jung reminded us that the greatest obstacle isn't outside us, but within. It's that inner voice saying, if I don't chase them, I'll lose them, or I need to change to be enough. But here's the secret. That voice isn't your truth. It's just an echo of past experiences, social conditioning, wounds you've accumulated throughout your life. Every time you choose to confront that voice, every time you choose to act from your authenticity despite fear, you're dismantling those limiting beliefs and creating space for a new reality. This is the true power of choosing yourself. You free yourself from the invisible chains that have kept you trapped in cycles of seeking and disappointment. As you advance on this path, you begin to notice something fascinating. People and situations that once seemed distant or impossible begin to approach you effortlessly. Not because you've suddenly become more attractive by conventional standards, but because your energy has changed. You no longer emit the vibration of need or lack, but of fullness and self-acceptance. This energy is magnetic, but not in the manipulative sense many relationship experts promote. It's not about playing psychological games or using seduction techniques. It's about something much deeper and more authentic, alignment with your true self. And when you're aligned with yourself, you naturally attract people who are on a similar frequency. The extraordinary thing about this process is that it not only transforms your romantic relationships, but all aspects of your life. Your work, your friendships, your projects. Everything begins to reflect this new energy. Because, as Jung discovered, there's no real separation between the different areas of our existence. All are manifestations of our inner state. When you choose yourself, you become a living example of what it means to be authentic. You inspire others not with words, but with your way of being. You don't need to preach or convince. Simply by being yourself, you're making a difference in the world. You're demonstrating it's possible to live with integrity, even when that means going against the current. This is something Carl Jung deeply understood. He knew that individual change has a chain effect, that every time a person chooses themselves, they're contributing to a collective change. Because when we live from our authenticity, our relationships, communities, and even the entire world transform. But make no mistake, this journey isn't linear. There will be days when you'll feel completely aligned and at peace, and others when old patterns will try to resurface. Those moments of doubt are part of the process, and Jung saw them as opportunities to deepen your connection with yourself. Each challenge, each relapse, is an invitation to reflect, learn, and reaffirm your commitment to your true self. The important thing is to remember you're not alone. Although the journey toward authenticity may seem solitary at first, you'll always find people and resources that support you along the way. Maybe it's a book, a conversation, or even a video like this that reaches you at the exact moment you need it. These aren't accidents. They're manifestations of that synchronicity Jung described, signs that you're on the right path. When you look back at all you've overcome, you realize that every experience, every relationship, even the most painful ones, has led you to this moment. It has prepared you to take this crucial step, choosing yourself. And although the future may seem uncertain, there's something that will always be true. As long as you remain true to your essence, you'll be emitting an energy that will not only transform your life, but naturally attract the connections and experiences you truly desire. The greatest gift you can give yourself is permission to be yourself. Not the version of you that you think will attract others, nor the one you've built to protect yourself from rejection, but your purest essence, the one that exists when all conditioning and expectations fade away. Carl Jung showed us that the true work of life isn't in seeking outside, but in unraveling the mystery we carry within. And when you finally choose yourself, you realize that everything you are seeking has always been with you. This is a call to action. Life is too brief to live it chasing approval, to ignore your own needs and dreams in favor of relationships that don't honor you. Today is the day to take the first step, to face your shadows, listen to your intuition, and reconnect with your true self. Because when you choose yourself, you not only change your energy, but also the type of people and experiences you attract into your life. And remember, you don't have to chase them. When you emit the energy of someone who knows, values, and chooses themselves, they will feel it. Not as a result of a technique or strategy, but as the natural consequence of your authenticity. This is the true magic that Jung discovered, that when you stop chasing and start being, the universe conspires to bring you exactly what you need. What now? This is the moment to reflect on what you've heard. Ask yourself, in what areas of my life am I chasing instead of being? Where have I sacrificed my authenticity for acceptance? What small step can I take today to start choosing myself? Remember that every small decision counts, and you're not alone on this journey. This space, this channel, is here to remind you of your infinite potential and to accompany you as you travel the path toward your true essence. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to share it with someone who might need it. Perhaps you know someone who's trapped in the cycle of seeking external validation, someone who has forgotten their own value. Your simple act of sharing could be the spark that initiates their transformation. Every interaction, every comment you leave below, every time you hit like or share this video, you help this message reach more people who need it. Imagine the impact we could have together, a community of individuals committed to living from their authenticity. Let me know in the comments which part of this message resonated most deeply with you. Was it the idea that you don't need to chase to attract? Or perhaps the concept that your energy changes when you choose yourself? Every reflection you share not only helps me create more valuable content, but might also be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to receive notifications. This way, you'll be the first to access more content inspired by the teachings of Carl Jung and other great masters who have illuminated the path of self-discovery. This channel is a safe space where we'll explore together the depths of the human psyche, where we'll learn to decipher the messages of our unconscious, and most importantly, where we'll remind each other of the importance of choosing our truth above external expectations. Remember, you don't need to chase them, pursue them, or convince them. When you choose yourself, when you honor your truth and live from your authenticity, you emit an energy that's impossible to ignore. And it's this energy, this vibration of fullness and self-acceptance, that they will feel without you having to do anything more than be who you truly are. The next time you find yourself tempted to change to please someone else, to chase someone who pulls away, or to ignore your intuition, remember Jung's words. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. It's time to awaken to your true potential. It's time to choose yourself. It's time to trust that when you do, you'll attract exactly what's meant for you, without effort, without strategies, simply by being. Thank you for being here today, for dedicating this time to your personal growth. Your presence in this space isn't coincidence, it's part of that beautiful web of synchronicities that Jung described. And if you've made it this far, it's because there's something in this message your soul needed to hear. We'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue deepening into these fascinating mysteries of the human psyche. Until then, remember, don't chase them. They will feel this energy when you finally decide to choose yourself. See you soon.